Story 1. How to deal with friends who accept my husband's mistress. My husband M and I, 58, have been married 27 years now. Sometime in 2019, before our 23rd anniversary, he crossed the line with a friend of mine no 51, and they started a secret affair. I found out in January of 2021 and told him if he was going to keep seeing her, he couldn't live in our home with me and our then 13-year-old now 16. He stated he was in love with her and left. He spent a couple weeks living with his sister, who I resent for supporting him then, and then got an apartment on his own with our money. I thought he wasn't moving in with my ex-friend because her kids D20 and 18 know me well and like me and know he is married to me. In fact, my parents are friends with her parents. Her sister is married to the man who was my brother's best friend at age 6, and her twin sisters were in my high school class. So lots of twisted interrelationships. But now her kids have moved out to colleges out of the area, and she lives alone. So I guess he doesn't move because he knows our won't be willing to stay at her house, and right now he stays with my 2 nights per week. Now, before you start railing on me for not dumping my like a hot potato, please hear me out. I still love him and feel sure this is a midlife crisis. He turned 50 in 2017, a milestone trigger, and then in 2018, on our actual wedding anniversary. His second stepdad, his only real father figure, had a massive heart attack with no warning and died in front of us while we were tailgating at our favorite college football venue. His real dad abandoned him. Ironically, Dad also left with friend of the family when my was 11, ironically same age as our son when his affair started. Then his mom immediately married the nearest guy because she didn't know how else she would afford to take care of her 3 kids. This second stepdad was genuinely awesome and had only been married to his mom about 3 or 4 years before he met me. Oh, and lest I forget, middle child syndrome is real. My always felt neglected between his 5 years older sister, who was a troublemaker kid, and his 5 years younger her sister, who was the sick kid. Always on the brink of death with lupus. They are both great now. My even donated a kidney to his younger sister, so you see what I'm talking about when I say he's actually really great, except for the whole having sex with my ex-friend thing. Until last May, was waffling back and forth. One day he would tell me he misses me, another day not. One day he would say book the vacay for both of us, then silence while the mistress reeled him back in. Despite this being true love, he still has not filed for divorce. We are both pretty stable financially, so I don't think it's money keeping him from starting that process. I think deep down he knows he still loves me, and I also think after all this time she is starting to lose some of the unicorn-eye-ness. After all, real relationships can't be lovey-dovey perfection all the time. There are taxes to pay, toilets to plunge, and aches and pains of aging. My is a good dad and even a good husband, except for this addiction he has to a bad drug, dopamine. Even now that he is planning to divorce me after the holidays, he is being very kind and is clearly feeling bad that his pleasure and joy has to cause me and our so much pain. I'm sure he wishes we would all just see it as for the best and hopes I will find my perfect unicorn as he has, so I will see that God has someone perfect out there for me, just as he has found in my unicorny friend. Finally, my challenge for the thread. I've just been invited to a Christmas party of a friend we have in common. This friend was my friend before me, but heck, now he and his wife have been my friend too for 27 years. I thought his wife and I were actually decently good friends, but she is in the same career as the mistress, so I'm sure she and the mistress enjoy each other's company. This couple likely thinks it's a good idea my is getting in touch with what makes him happy. Although I don't think they wish this pain on me, I think their love for me has them wishing I would fall in love with someone more like me. So they could stop feeling awkward about their choice to welcome my husband's mistress into their friendship. They have brought the happy couple for outings on their boat and to fill their second pair of season seats at their favorite NFL team's games. They are aware I want to do everything I can to reconcile with my I even had a heart-to-heart with the guy explaining how hurtful it feels to me that he is accepting of them. While he seemed understanding at the time, he continues to show up in smelly pictures with the happy couple on social media. This is only one specific example, but there are literally dozens of friends and also my entire batch of in-laws who seem fine with accepting this new woman as my H's new partner and pretty much ditching me. I don't think they want to ditch me, but they want to support my H and don't see how they can stay in contact with me, too, without being confronted by guilt that they don't have the spine to support me by shunning my H's mistress. I wish they would all lovingly confront my husband and point out he is choosing an alcoholic who would stab a friend in the back for her. Pleasure? And suggest, doesn't that seem like you should get some counseling to figure out what would attract you to that? But I can't make anyone do anything, so I try to avert my eyes. But now I have this Christmas party invite. It is confirmed that my H will be there with the mistress. Some other friends coming in from out of state to attend contacted me and said, "We really hope to see you there." My supportive girlfriend tribe are all telling me I should not go. They say these are clearly not people I should be friends with. So if I carry that out to all the friends and family who are finally accepting the reality that my H is still with my ex-friend, that will be a lot of people I'm cutting ties with. But shouldn't I be going about my life as I choose without regard for whether or not I might run into my soon-to-be ex, and go to any parties I would normally go to and keep friendships with my normal circles as if what my H does not matter in my growth journey? With that said, only one single person of my in-laws has ever reached out to say boo to me in all this time. Despite that I specifically contacted my mother-in-law and one sister-in-law, asking them to please support me and their grandson-nephew by encouraging my H to come home and get some counseling. Story 2. Do I break up or hold on to hope? Get married. F29 and M30. Me, F, and my BF M30 have been dating for a little over 1.5 years. We met abroad, we instantly clicked, and our relationship escalated very quickly. I moved in after 6 weeks. It was wonderful. He was super supportive of me and my dreams. I was working and doing my degree on the side. Fast forward a couple of months. He and his ex, they have a kid, got into a disagreement when she chose her then BF over spending time and allowing him to go see his kid so impulsively. He decided to bring his kid to come live with us for a couple of months, without consulting me. We had fights about this. He said he would never let anyone come in between him and his kid, which I understand, but not what I was upset about. I have never had experience with dating someone with a kid before. This kid was super young. 3 and I was scared and hurt he just sprung this on me. His reaction was for us to break up. He was willing to let me go and I could focus on me again. I am an anxiously attached partner, or have those tendencies in certain aspects, where I feel like I have to work and earn to be loved, change and adapt. Not great, I know. I had worked on that a lot before him and was good until this happened. Him saying he wanted to break up had me begging him, crying not to. In hindsight, I know if I had been strong like him or anyone else, first sign of them wanting to leave should have made me respond with, "Okay, I understand," and having confidence in knowing that if he loves me, he would never let me go or he would regret it and come back. I think this was my first mistake. I am not perfect. Far from it. I have a tendency to be really defensive. I can get loud when I get emotional, not screaming, but raising my voice both when I am upset or happy or excited. And it's something I am working on, although I sometimes slip up. I have had this problem as a kid, not always hearing myself, and I also tend to think I am very smart, which I know is an obnoxious trait, and I try to be better at not inserting my 2 cents into everything. But as redeeming features, I have no issues with coming around once I digest, and then I am the first to apologize. I am not prideful. I like to think I am self-aware, and I always want to be better to everyone around me, even to the detriment of my emotions. His kid came, and it was hard. As someone who's never had or dated someone with a kid, it was close to catastrophic between us. The kid loves me, still does. I love his kid. No issues there at all. The kid even ended up missing me more on occasions, and we spent days alone together. Wonderful kid. No, the issues were with my BF. I felt neglected. I asked, pleaded to get some alone time with him, to hire a babysitter as I felt I only got leftover time, which would consist of whispered sex in another room once the kid was asleep. He did not want to, due to feeling guilty of having limited time with his kid. But again, We had a few whispered fights where we ended up with him, again, saying he wants to break up, and I, again, begged him not to. More fights came as I felt I was the only one trying, and he always had a foot out the door. He always said he regretted, and that he was just emotional, and that he only said those things when he felt cornered, and I was pushing him. He was trying in other areas, acts of service and being sweet when we weren't arguing. Fast forward, he has to move back to the US due to his work, and my visa in that country was expiring at the same time, so he asked me to go with him. My school was online, and I was working as a private tutor at the time, and I love him and wanted to spend my life with him, so I went with him. We did not get married. I am not an American, so we decided that I would travel back and forth as I could do my degree from anywhere and he would financially support it. However, every fight we had, he always broke up with me. Sometimes he would say he would put me on a plane, sometimes he would leave, and sometimes he would just say he's done. I would again beg. He always thanked me for bringing him back when he wasn't thinking clearly, but some resentment was starting to build up. My self-esteem was going down. We talked about marriage. He said he wasn't ready as his divorce had been finalized recently, and I wanted to respect that. But a part of me, which we again had arguments about, was if you love me, then what are you not sure about? He said he wanted to get married and start a life with me, just not yet, which I respected. A wedding or marriage in itself was never something I dreamt of as a little girl, different culture, and my parents never marrying. I want to, because I want my person in the sense that I want one person to stick it out with. Someone who loves me enough to be sure they want me, all of me, and I, them. I am not close with my family. I have always been alone, so I have always wanted to make my own, not sure about kids, but sure about wanting someone who feels like home. To go through life with, to share in feelings and thoughts, to support and be supported by, to know, no matter what, they got me and I. He asked if I could see his love through his actions supporting me, introducing me to his family, his kid, planning our future, going to meet my family which he paid for. But every argument led to him wanting to break up, saying he was done or expressing his doubts about us. And every time he did, a small piece of me died. I told him, over and over, how this affected me. He promised he wouldn't. But he kept doing it. He said it's only when I push him into a corner, which I know is my fault as I am anxious. And I don't like feeling like we're arguing and he needs space while I need to talk about it now, to be reassured. I have gotten better and worse, but I also think, and if I am wrong here, and if it truly is my fault, please tell me, but I think if he hadn't done these things, made me feel like I can't trust him emotionally, and with a future, or his word, I wouldn't have been so anxious. I was, and am, always worried that this argument, this fight, will make him leave me. Maybe I should learn to communicate better, or maybe drop some things that were unnecessary. I know I can be selfish, but I didn't used to be. Not in the beginning, but was that the honeymoon phase and I truly am a selfish person? Or did he make me this way? But is that me blaming him and not taking responsibility? I truly want insight if this is my fault for pushing him. And, ultimately, doing this to myself, BC, I'm such an anxious person and doubtful of my worth and not trusting that just BC we're arguing doesn't mean he doesn't love me. This kept going while I was out of the country and when I was back. In the last few months, I think BC of him always threatening to break up and me not feeling loved or wanted resulted in me pulling back and not meeting his needs. He started to feel unloved, and I tried to meet them, but a part of me had stopped caring. The last time we were together in the US, we were deciding if I should go to my home country or Canada since it's closer, and he could come visit while I waited for time to pass so I could return. But my thoughts, and I haven't told him, was that I was so resentful, so hurt and so done with feeling like this, but I also couldn't stand losing him, so I ended up in this state of wanting to keep him but stopped trying. The fights that happened before and during, I was just empty. I was slowly checking out. My anxious side was still there, and I still begged. But I was slowly, in my mind, planning my permanent return to my home country as I felt like. If I had been more secure financially, emotionally, and an actual home to return to, and not this constant vagabonding I did for him. Maybe the first time he had threatened, or even the 10 times before now, I would have never tolerated my boundary being crossed. Maybe I wouldn't have felt abandoned, and I could have responded like more secure people would with fine. If that is what you want, BC, the logical part of me knows you should never have to ask someone to stay or beg to be loved. I stopped feeling emotionally safe with him. I couldn't trust his word. I was apprehensive about bringing up my feelings, careful how I worded things in case that would make him threaten to break up again. I felt like I was losing myself and my courage. He came to visit me in Canada, and we had an argument. Don't even remember what about, just that he again walked out, said he was done, and that he would be on the next flight back. I, again, begged him to come back, same as I always said in the lines of we don't do this to each other, but he had. And I remember for the first time, not instantly crying and being scared of losing him. Instead, a TikTok video came into my mind, which had the message roughly about, if you're ever unsure, then after your partner does something you don't like, then follow that sentence with my husband would never do this to me. And I realized my husband would indeed never do this. I'm not saying for him to be my punching bag and just take whatever I say stoically. I would understand him maybe walking out to cool down, or I don't know, telling me he needs space, even though my anxious side would probably combust inside. But I, never once, have threatened or hinted at breaking up, no matter how emotionally upset or high-strung I've been. BC told me early on, if I do, he would walk out without looking back, and I never crossed that line. BC, I never wanted to lose him or even risk losing him. But my husband would never do this, just hit me then. BC, he has gotten so comfortable knowing he can't lose me, I think. I'm not sure I understand, and I do have a tendency to think it's not fair. Then something that's either a blessing or a curse happened. My entry permit to the US was changed, and denied not forever, I think, but most likely. BC, I had traveled so much into the US. This put a change into our plans, and he revealed that he had been planning on proposing, but BC, I couldn't go. Things changed, and I had to return to my home country. He said we can get married and start the green card process, so we can finally be together. BC, the process is long, and this is sort of where we are now. At first, I was shocked and happy. BC, he had said he wanted to wait a few years to get married, so I had sort of put the possibility of marriage out of my mind. That coupled with me feeling like I need to establish myself properly somewhere, so I don't feel lost or in a position of dependence, so that I feel okay and good on my own if he were to break up with me again. BC, I have lost all trust of his words, I think. He says forever, but I don't know if I believe him anymore. If we get married, what's to say he won't do this? I don't trust him to love me, and the feeling started with me having doubts and fears about marrying him, but again, I didn't want to lose him. But we talked, and I agreed at first to get married, but this enormous weight in my chest, like a stone, wouldn't go away. So we talked back and forth, and I think my indecisiveness was killing it for him, which I completely understand. It wasn't until 2 days ago that I came across the term emotional abuse, and one of the examples was threatening or breaking up every time you had a fight. Is this emotional abuse, or is it my fault for being so anxious? The crux is also, if we don't get married, and on the risk I might not get another entry permit, we might not see each other for a few years. Or maximum 2 times a year, since he would have to come to me and he has his work which doesn't allow him a lot of time. Off 10 days and his kid will come next fall to stay with him for 2 school semesters, which will further limit his travels, and I won't be able to go there. There is also the issues that have arisen to me not being able to trust him. I feel like if we get married, I can only do it if I make sure I'm good if he decides to divorce me in the future. I used to be fine taking his last name. I don't mind, but when he suggested we marry, I wanted to keep mine. There are a lot of reasons for this. I am the youngest and last in my family, so if I don't keep it, I tell die out. But I think a big reason is safeguarding myself. For a time, if a divorce is here, I don't want to have to go back and forth, lose an identity all over again. I would be fine being a stepmom. He has improved, and I believe him it would be different this time compared to my first experience. He is Catholic pro-life, and I am agnostic at best, coming from a very liberal country and family, but he is the kind that truly wants to learn and grow, and he always thanks me for expanding his views. Do I marry him so we can be together and work through it once I'm there? Do I wait but then being forced to do 2 years or more long distance? He thinks it's hard to work on issues apart, but I am so scared of losing the little security I have. I am back in my home country now. I managed to find a place with roommates, which feels like a failure as I am turning 30 next year and feels like I should be more established with a career and money to have my own place at least, but I chose to live abroad for a long time and putting those things off. My life as single would be hard starting over at 29, living with roommates for the next year or two, having to do all of those things. On the other hand, I can see my life with him and what he offers, and that is wonderful and secure, and he would support my dreams and career and ambitions, always taking care of me. I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose him, but I don't know how to get back the feelings of being excited instead of scared marrying him. And I'm worried my hesitation on this will make me lose him anyways. Story 3. My MTF wife is afraid to come out. How can I help? My wife came out to me as trans in 2018, and while it took some time to adjust, I embraced her. Our marriage of now 18 years has had some struggles, but ultimately we are still in love, and if anything, I have fallen in love with her even more these past couple years. Our main issue has been with her overwhelming fear of coming out to everyone else. It doesn't help that we live in a red state, though, with quite a few right-leaning family members and plenty of childhood emotional trauma. She started HRT in 2021, and it's been so wonderful to see her blossom in private, but I'm beginning to get concerned about how fearful she is of anyone else finding out. It's not like she is in boy mode exactly either. She wears mostly gender-neutral or somewhat feminine casual clothing, has long hair, keeps her facial hair clean-shaven, and has obvious breast growth, though she did have gynecomastia prior to HRT, so that has only further allowed her to stay in her shell. I know she mostly struggles with the fear of rejection from her family, affecting my relationship with my evangelical Christian family. I've told her that while I hope my family will be accepting, I choose her over them and the dangers of being out in a conservative town, and to a lesser degree of never passing. I believe she could pass now with a bit of feminizing makeup, but that's a no-go for her at the moment. On my end, I struggle with the verbal gymnastics of avoiding gendering her in conversation and the guilt I feel when I start a sentence in a way that causes me to misgender her, or on the rare occasion that I get mixed up and say something completely insensitive that causes her embarrassment or dysphoria. And now things are just getting to the point that I worry I'm enabling her in some way. But I also don't want to push her too hard, even when it's plain to see just how desperately she wants to be out. Maybe I'm just being impatient, but I see how defeated and unhappy she gets sometimes, and it breaks my heart. I haven't been able to get her to agree to therapy, so now I'm at a loss as to how to help her move forward. Story 4. AIW for corrupting supposed tuition and giving silent treatment. Mother 43 is stuck abroad because she was stupid enough to take a job from a sus company. My father M71 is with his wife in another city. He and my mother are divorced. And I was left with my 2 siblings alone at home. M17 amp, F7. Brother is envious, no self-principle, walks defiantly, hypocritical, annoying, as stupid as mother. The point is, brother's an attention whore despite being taller and muscular than me. I don't know since when and why, but one day mother stopped siding with me and always siding with brother. Or, should I say, neutral, also known as, asks me to give in and be wise because I'm older. One time, I was in my room with my sister. Brother came to my room and brutally took my sister's phone from her hand for no reason, acting like he's in charge, and left her crying out loud. I asked to give what's hers back, but he won't. Guess what? I had enough of this, so I fought him, and she saw us. He finally gave the phone back. I tried to explain all the situations. Then mother picked his side and not mine for standing up for her very beloved daughter. She's so narcissistic because, before this, my sister was bullied by some boys, and instead of comforting her by phone, she blamed me for letting her out and play with her friends, and yelled at her own little daughter for it too, while brother was putting her in the box and not letting her explore outside. Narcissist mother also encouraged brother to rematch me in public. Then I decided not to talk to mother anymore, and before blocking her WhatsApp number, I warned her that brother would destroy her life and that I wouldn't ever help her if that ever happened. Then, from that point on, until right now, I give silent treatment to mother and brother. Mother tried to reach out to me using another number to tell me she sent some money and told me how to distribute them, including my tuition for 2 semesters. I distributed the money the way she wanted, but used up a certain amount that was supposed to be for my tuition to study the boot camp tasks at Starbucks daily instead. She doesn't know it yet, though, and later, she sent me money again, but I immediately transferred it back to her with no respect. My father is well aware of this drama. We chit-chat by phone often, but he doesn't know it yet too that I quit college for this boot camp. So my father has only heard the sugar-coated part of my side of the story. I always lie when he asks about college, and I'm starting to feel bad. Well, since I got a job after graduating from the boot camp, I was planning to tell my father the truth and give back the money to mother when I saved enough. But this lie is such a burden. I don't know what to do now. This drama is always on my mind, and now that I've been away from home for a pretty long time. My sister is already closer to brother, and I barely talk to her anymore. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, but whatever she's a kid, I hope I will get over this soon.